There is a survival trick ancient humans used that by any reasonable modern standard should not have worked. It is not a weapon, it is not a trap, it is not fire or shelter or any of the things you'd expect to show up on a prehistoric survival checklist. It is running. Specifically, running after an animal for hours in the heat on purpose until the animal literally collapsed. This technique has an actual name, persistence hunting, and the more you pull it apart and look at what it actually involves, the more genuinely unsettling it becomes. Not because it's brutal, though it is, but because it reveals something about the human body that most people have no idea is sitting quietly inside their own biology right now. Let's actually dig into this properly, because the details make the headline look like an understatement. The basic mechanics of persistence hunting look almost insultingly simple on the surface. A hunter identifies an animal, historically often something large like a kudu or a wildebeest. Then they chase it, not in a sprint, not with any particular urgency, just steadily, consistently, across open ground, under direct sun, at a pace that the animal cannot maintain without overheating to the point of physical collapse. And here's the part that makes this genuinely strange. The animal is almost always faster than the human, significantly faster in most cases. A kudu can hit speeds a human being has no realistic chance of matching. The hunter isn't outrunning the prey. The hunter is outlasting it, using one specific catastrophic biological vulnerability that most four-legged animals share, and that humans, almost uniquely among large animals, simply don't have. That vulnerability is thermoregulation, the inability to cool down efficiently while running. Most quadrupeds cool themselves primarily through panting. The problem is that panting requires a specific breathing rhythm, and that breathing rhythm is mechanically locked to their running gait. Every time a four-legged animal takes a stride, its internal organs shift, compressing the lungs, and the animal is essentially forced to breathe in sync with its legs. One breath, one stride. You can't uncouple those two things if you're built the way most large mammals are built, which means the faster a quadruped runs, the faster it has to breathe, but the less effective that breathing becomes at actually venting heat. Push it hard enough, for long enough, in the right environmental conditions, and the animal literally cannot cool its own body fast enough to survive the sustained exertion. Its core temperature rises, its muscles start failing, it slows down, it stops, it collapses. The hunter, meanwhile, has been sweating. This is where human biology does something genuinely remarkable that almost no other large animal on the planet does at the same level. Humans are, by any objective biological measure, absolutely extraordinary sweating machines. We have somewhere in the range of 2 to 4 million eccrine sweat glands distributed across our bodies, with the highest density in areas specifically optimized for maximum heat venting during physical activity. We can sweat at rates that, during sustained, intense activity, would genuinely impress a physiologist. And unlike panting, sweating is completely mechanically independent of running gait. A human can sprint or jog at any speed, at any stride frequency, and continue venting heat through evaporative cooling the entire time without any interference between the two systems. Our breathing and our cooling are completely separate mechanisms. This is not a coincidence. Researchers believe this specific combination of traits, upright bipedal locomotion, reduced body hair, an extraordinary density of sweat glands, and the uncoupled breathing and cooling systems, evolved together in our ancestors over millions of years, specifically in the context of operating effectively in hot, open environments during the heat of the day. When everyone else had to stop or collapse, we kept going. Now here's where the popular image of ancient hunters as purely weapons-based predators starts looking genuinely incomplete. For a long time, the dominant assumption in both pop culture and a lot of academic thinking was that early humans became effective hunters primarily through tools, better spears, better traps, better ambush strategies, weapons as the central story. And tools obviously mattered enormously. Nobody's arguing otherwise. But persistence hunting evidence suggests that long before sophisticated projectile weapons became common, early humans may have had access to a hunting method that required essentially no technology at all beyond a basic understanding of animal behavior, a reasonable knowledge of local terrain, and the willingness to run across open ground in the midday heat for several hours, which is a significantly simpler technological barrier than engineering an effective stone spear tip. Researchers like David Carrier, Dennis Bramble, and Daniel Lieberman have made influential arguments that endurance running isn't just something humans happen to be able to do, it's something we were specifically, precisely shaped by evolution to do exceptionally well. The spring-like mechanics of the Achilles tendon, the large gluteus maximus that stabilizes the torso during running but is disproportionately small in our closest non-running primate relatives, the nuchal ligament in the neck that prevents the head from pitching violently forward with every stride, the way our feet are structured, the width of our shoulder joints relative to our hips. None of these traits make any particular sense if you think of humans as purely walking animals. They all make extraordinary sense if you think of humans as animals specifically engineered by evolution to run long distances effectively. We didn't stumble into endurance capacity. We were built for it. There's direct ethnographic evidence that persistence hunting is not some theoretical reconstruction invented by researchers sitting in air-conditioned offices. The San people of the Kalahari, among several other documented traditional hunter-gatherer groups, practice persistence hunting within living memory. Researchers have documented, observed, and filmed actual persistence hunts taking place. This is not speculation, reconstructed from bone fragments and educated guessing. This is recorded, witnessed, ongoing human behavior. San hunters have described the process in detail that's genuinely striking. You don't chase the animal in a panic. You pace yourself deliberately. You track it not just by sight, but by reading the ground, the disturbance patterns in the grass, the angle of dust, the specific way different animals move differently when they're beginning to overheat versus when they're still running comfortably. You learn to read the animal's thermoregulatory state from a distance and through indirect evidence. You understand when to push the pace to prevent it from resting and cooling down, and when to ease off and conserve your own energy for the next push. This is not mindless physical endurance. It's a sophisticated cognitive task layered on top of extraordinary physical endurance. The hunter has to track, interpret, strategize, and adjust continuously across a pursuit that can last anywhere from 2 to 5 hours, sometimes longer. This is not a dumb, brute force physical solution. It is a physically demanding, cognitively intensive skill that took years of accumulated knowledge and practice to execute effectively. Let's bring the environmental context into sharper focus here, because this particular survival trick didn't work just anywhere under any conditions. It works specifically well in open environments with high ambient temperatures and direct sun exposure. The Kalahari, the African savanna, environments where most large predators, for exactly the thermoregulatory reasons we've already discussed, went quiet during the hottest part of the day and avoided extended midday exertion, which means persistence hunters weren't even competing directly with the big cats and pack predators for the same hunting window. Lions hunt at dawn, at dusk, at night. Persistence hunters operated at midday precisely because midday was when their specific biological advantage was maximized and their competition was napping in the shade. This is genuinely elegant as a survival strategy. You find the exact environmental window where your specific biology gives you the largest possible advantage over every other predator in the ecosystem, and you operate in that window. It's not strength, it's not speed, it's not superior weaponry. It's knowing exactly which conditions make your weird particular set of biological quirks into a decisive competitive advantage, and then exploiting that window systematically. Now, it's worth addressing the honest counterargument here, because this research area does have legitimate critics, and pretending otherwise would be doing the topic a disservice. Some researchers have pointed out that the skeletal evidence for endurance running adaptations, while compelling, doesn't definitively prove that persistence hunting was widespread or common across ancient human populations. Evidence from one set of environments and one specific group doesn't automatically generalize to every early human population everywhere. Persistence hunting may have been a regionally specific strategy rather than a universal early human behavior. The honest, careful answer researchers land on is that persistence hunting was almost certainly real, documented, and practiced, but its historical prevalence and importance relative to other hunting methods remains an active and genuinely unresolved research question rather than a settled consensus. What isn't really in serious dispute is the underlying biology. The thermoregulatory argument is well supported. The anatomical case for human endurance running adaptation is genuinely strong. The ethnographic evidence is documented and filmed. The question isn't whether humans could do this. The question is exactly how much they did, where, and when. There is also something genuinely worth pausing on here beyond the purely mechanical survival angle. Persistence hunting at the scale and duration that ethnographic accounts describe required a kind of relationship between a hunter and the animal being hunted that doesn't map cleanly onto the way most modern people think about either hunting or human-animal relationships. You spend hours with this animal, reading it, anticipating it, matching your pace to its state. Some ethnographic accounts from sand hunters describe a specific psychological and almost emotional dimension to a persistence hunt, a kind of respect and intimacy with the animal that develops across hours of pursuit. The moment of the kill, when it finally comes, is frequently described not as triumphant, but as solemn, as the end of something that had become genuinely significant. This is not a detail that usually makes it into popular depictions of ancient hunting. It doesn't fit comfortably into either the triumphant, heroic hunter narrative or the purely mechanical survival strategy framing, but it shows up consistently enough in ethnographic accounts that it deserves to be taken seriously as a real dimension of what this experience actually involved. The persistence hunting story ultimately says something bigger than just ancient people could run far. It says that human survival was never simply about who had the sharpest weapon or the strongest arm. It was about finding the specific, precise overlap between what a human body can do that nothing else can quite replicate and the environmental window where that capability becomes a genuine, decisive advantage. We weren't the fastest. We weren't the strongest. We weren't the most physically imposing predator in any of the environments we occupied, but we could sweat while we ran, and we could keep thinking clearly while we did it, for longer than almost anything else alive. And for hundreds of thousands of years, it turned out that was enough.